Cool, man.
Was
That's a lovely backdrop.
Oh yeah. I thought that I have to do this sort of like not a PowerPoint presentation, but sort of all roads lead to Birmingham type of thing. So I thought that fits it sort of like delivers the message. I'm a torchbearer at the end of the day, not the reinventor of a wheel.
I feel bad. All I've got is like my own shitty paintings and a bit of Nine Inch Nails fan art.
No, you got snails. That's a yeah. We got a competition going on here.
Yeah. You win.
Oh, so similar morose bastards, just a different decade.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I grew up as I was a goth growing up, so you can imagine you're yes, him and the Hardigram. I saw quite a bit of that. Now
Cool.
you would know your way around goth scenes as someone who has toured the world playing sad happy love metal
Yeah,
and all of its things. What have you noticed of the different subcultures around the world? Like what, for example, sets Finnish goths apart from, say, Australian goths?
what an interesting topic. Back in the day, at least, I remember the UK goths are the original ones that smell of patchouli, have super skinny jeans, maybe creepers, and these days they're possibly a tad overweight because they can't do amphetamines anymore. And then in the States, a lot of times they're wearing more of that sort of PVC. They have that Japanese vibe, a lot of makeup and really colorful hair, and it's got that cyber goth sort of thing going on. And I think in Finland it's more about the metal aspect of it. We have some of those old school goths with the frilly gear and who look like Lestat's younger brother. So, but I think these days, because of the sort of like niche within a niche within a niche type of what happened through Spotify and all that, there's a subgenre of a subgenre. I think that everybody's looking for individuality, and the tribalism in any scene is way less than it used to be. Because back in the day, being Iron Maiden fan in the 80s and so forth, we tried to look exactly the same. And these days, people want to have their unique thing going, I think. And that applies to goth as well. The only thing that is in common with all goths is, the fact that they mostly wear in black.
Mm. I feel like there were certain just like kind of cultural torchbearers or touchstones for that. Like, I'm 38, so when I was about 9 or 10 years old, The Crow came out. Movies like,
Yeah.
and I think Interview with the Vampire was around the same year. And I imagine,
Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare
oh,
Before was a bit big too. So it was all that stuff. You're absolutely right. They were huge influence, all of the stuff. Because I was in my teens. I started working on music, and sort of like we had the idea of him going already. So all that was very informative. And I got at that time we didn't have the digital stream platform, so all the music was through friends. Like somebody had a Sisters of Mercy vinyl you could take out for a weekend and so forth. So there was a lot of discoveries to be made, especially because a lot of goth music most of them were released on very small imprints by very indie labels. So it was sort of like the travels of Indiana Jones, but with black lipstick.
but my mind goes back to, I mean, seeing the Nine Inch Nails logo behind me. I'm a huge fan, but I've never got to see him live. I can't imagine how intense some of those like late 80s, early 90s Nine Inch Nails shows must have got. Like,
Yeah, must be. I've only seen them once. They played the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, and that was when they had that when Trent sort of like broke the glass. So like I don't know how they created it with mesh or some digital screen thing. They played a few songs and everything looked great and all that, and all of a sudden he like hit the area between the audience and himself with his mic stand, and all of a sudden it seemed that the whole stage had a glass there that fractured apart.
oh,
It was amazing effect. I mean, it could be that these days everybody does it, but then it was like, what the hell's going on? And I was so cocky. I was like, been there, done that, wild thinking that, oh my God, I'm ruined. There's no career for me left anymore. But well, here we are.
well, speaking of your career, mate, what did embarking as a solo musician, what did that teach you about yourself? having to go things your own way?
Uh, more or less, I've always had things go my way because I can be very convincing. I'm a good arm twister, as they say. But I think the main difference doing this by myself this time around was the fact that I didn't have to compromise schedule-wise, and I was able to concentrate on whatever I wanted to concentrate, whether it be musical stuff or take days off whenever I needed to, or it was being my own master. That was the nice thing about it. It really, truly was little things like that. When you get excited about a song, you don't have to call 5 people or 4 people up and try to fit in a rehearsal day, which at times can be good too because it gives the subliminal mind a bit more time to work things out and make sure that you come up with the goods. But I thought that the main thing regarding Neo Noir was the fact that it was very undiluted. Whenever I had an idea, because I recorded everything by myself at home, I could start working on it from a get-go, as opposed to waiting for maybe weeks to sort of like forget the ideas already and wait till everything's watered down. So I think that's been the cool thing about working by myself. But then the lack of brainstorming, you can't really brainstorm in front of a mirror. So that's what I'm like, and the camaraderie of being, because a lot of times in bands, as you know, there's one guy is the joker, one guy is the thinker, one guy is the doer or whatever, and it doesn't matter if the joker or the thinker don't necessarily even contribute to the music writing, but they contribute to the overall feel of the whole band, which in itself contributes to everything. So trying to do all that with my multiple personalities was a challenge. But thankfully enough, we had COVID to mess my mind up even more. So it wasn't too bad.
So was that pretty much was music what kept you sane or attempted to keep you sane during that period?
Well put. Saner. Uh, yeah, it did. It gave me a reason to wake up every morning because, like many others, when it first started, I sort of like drowned in this black hole that the pandemic was, not knowing whether there's a tomorrow or not, and it's tough to, yeah, it's tough to keep going. I'm my own master, and in this sort of thing, I didn't have any deadlines, I didn't have anything, so it was so easy to sort of like just fall down on the sofa and watch Netflix. And after a couple of months, you sort of like you really when you start to get bed sores, or in this case, sofa sores, it's not a good idea. And then yeah, it was music that really got me going. And as I think everybody else tried to some one way or another to utilize the time, all of a sudden the free time that we were granted with something that would, sort of like build a muscle. Some people started cooking, some people started new hobbies, whatever they might have been, and I continued cooking my music.
Some people got back into music journalism.
There we go.
It was nice when I didn't have to preference. It was nice when people started playing gigs again, and I wasn't constantly having to go. So, what are your plans for if we're ever allowed outside again?
It takes such a long time to come out of all that, because a lot of the bands that were supposed to be touring, it was such a long time that they postponed, and as you know, all of a sudden all the bands are touring at the same time. So that's a challenge as well. There's not enough millionaires in this world to be able to go and see every show. So there's a lot of competition and but at the end of the day, I think the hunger and the sort of like the sparkle in the audience's eyes is well worth it. It's it seems that people really want to hear live music, and I think not necessarily just because of music, but the reason that loud music brings people together. The fact that they can be a part of that tribal feeling, that was missing for such a long time.
I'll never forget being packed into a mosh pit. My first mosh pit back in like early 2022. It was the first show I'd been to in over 2 years, and
Yeah,
I could have cried. I was so happy that it was
yeah.
just, I've missed this. I've missed the smell and the pot smoke and the underarms and like it's
Uh,
just,
yeah, yeah.
oh, that magical energy. It was so good to have it back.
Yeah, and it still feels the same. I think the point about that is the fact that you know that you can lose it at any moment. So whenever there is a gig, do go see it because you're not sure if you're going to see that band again or whatever. It
Yeah,
feels a bit more. Yeah, we're not taking things for granted as much as maybe we did before.
100%. Well, a lot of people, I imagine, who heard of your band through when you were doing him, heard of you through a fairly indirect way, and that was through band Margera.
Yes.
With the tattoo in his hand. What was the last time? When was the last time you spoke with him? And has it been kind of strange to see his struggles?
Oh, well, I've struggled a bit myself, I'm not stranger to that kind of struggle. I saw him when we toured in September, and that was the first time I saw him in many, many years. And he was in good shape, and unfortunately, there was so many people around with that we really didn't get to like rebond that much. And we sat down for a talk, and I just sent him a text a couple of days ago, and he was skating somewhere, and yeah, yeah, it's a bit. Um, because it's not nice to lose friends, and
Mm.
it's not. I'm not necessarily talking about from an egotistical perspective, but he's a lovely fella, and we shared a lot of great moments back in the day, and it's always good to have a friend, and if that friend wants to come back, he's more than welcome, and I'm happy that he's feeling better. He's been going through quite a lot of stuff since the early 2000s. It's been a long trek for him. So.
Yeah, yeah. It's and look, sobriety is a long journey. I will be actually in March 12th this year. I'll be celebrating 6 years sober, and I'll be doing that
Oh,
by going to see Fear Factory. So you.
that's one thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this year is my seventh. I think, yeah, going.
Wow.
Uh, so
Good
same
on you,
same
man.
thing. Not a single drop. It's like I never learned. I tried to learn how to be a good drunk, and it never happened. I tried that for 25 years and less. Tried different solutions and all that stuff, but I just ended up being a miserable bastard that was angry, aggressive, and then it was just eating away inside, and it didn't. It started to make the music sound like shit. I wasn't able to sing that well and all that. So I thought that music for me is more important than drinking, and
Yeah.
that should have been obvious early on, but what, that's how we do. Especially, the band started in the mid 90s, so that was still the time of the sort of 80s kind of debauchery. It was
Yeah.
part of the to get messed up after each and every gig, and I'm glad that I did see that night side as well. It's a good comparison to be able to sort of, yeah. Well, what
Yeah.
is it? William Blake said, you never know what is enough until you know what is more than enough. So
Yeah.
I'm one of those kinds of people. I'm sure you are too. If you decided to
But
screw the cork in again.
if I like to put it as I'm allergic to alcohol, I break out in handcuffs.
Yeah, yeah. Well put. Yeah, yeah. I know that feeling too. Oh
Well,
man.
that kind of leads into one of the other questions I had, which was if you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
I've never been much, a fan of linear time. I think
Mm.
stuff goes around in circles. So I think I have already, and I've told the bastard to do exactly what he wants to do, because at the end of the day, if I wouldn't have succeeded in certain things, or if I wouldn't have done the mistakes that I did make, I wouldn't be here. So in essence, all the mistakes we do are such an essential part of growing up. I think the important thing is not to repeat the mistakes. You get
Yeah,
a free pass. Yeah, you get a free pass if you do that, a couple of times, 3 times maybe. But after that, you'll be certified.
if you could collaborate with anyone, living or dead, who would it be or why? And why? Right.
Um, I like to keep my idols on a pedestal. I've met a few, and it's always been fantastic. But I'm a bit of a voyeur, so I like to adore from afar. So maybe if I could turn it around just a tad, would be that I'd love to be the fly on the wall when Black Sabbath were doing Sabbath Bloody Sabbath in the castle, something like that. It'd be nice to see and smell it and feel it. But I'm not necessarily into the idea of really collaborating. It'd be nice to sing a duet with Debbie Harry or Annie Lennox or Kate Bush, one
Mm.
of the great dames of popular culture. You know, and also I think the important thing is always to try to work with people who are better than yourself. So I'd like to feel like the little boy, you know, blushing and having a trembling voice with the
Yeah.
Debbie in the that'd be a great experience. But and collaborations in themselves, you know, they happen when they happen. I like the fact if they do happen that they're not premeditated. So it's not like a record company business decision sort of thing. It's more about just what feels right at that right moment and stuff that happens by chance. So in that sense, I I don't want to know what's around the corner. I like to keep it that way.
Well, all right. I like what you were saying about being a voyeur. Let me kind of expand on that a little because
Sure.
as someone who is my age, a lot of the bands that I'm into were playing some of their best shows when I was a kid and was never able to go see them. You know, I often joke that if I had a time machine, what would I go and do? Prevent 9/11? I'm going to go see Pantera in concert in 1996. Yeah. What if you could go back and see any kind of, famous gigs that you have maybe heard of or heard live recordings of, what would you like to go see?
I'd probably like to see one of the early TV shows by Elvis Presley. You know,
Ooh,
when they sort of like him
from the waist
shaking
up.
it,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. You know, because or to witness Beatlemania, how it really was then, because it was supposedly, you didn't even have PA systems then. The bands only had like little tiny amps and amps for the vocals as well, and people were screaming so loud you couldn't hear the music at all, which meant that they started building PAs because of that. And
Yeah.
there's so many things that it would be interesting, or then turning around once again to be a witness and be like a assistant engineer to Phil Spector when he did some of the 60s classics when he had like three bass players and three drummers and everybody playing at the same time to create that wall of sound. Of course, it would have been great to see Metallica when Master of Puppets came out. There's a lot of moments in time. Typo when Bloody Kisses came out.
Mm.
Um, all the
He's my
Sabbath
height.
stuff.
I didn't realize that.
Huh?
I'm 6'7", and I didn't realize until long after he
Oh
died
wow.
that Pete Steele was actually my height. And I was like,
Yeah, he was
holy
he was a
shit.
big fella. Yeah, I shook his hand a couple of times, but I never really got to know him, and I was always very intimidated. You know,
He will be.
it's a fight or flight mode. You know, when you see it.
Just remember, if you ever get to time travel back and you're watching Phil Spector, you might want to wear a bulletproof vest because you never know what can happen.
Well, rock and roll is a risk.
Oh, well put. Hey, what after the Neon Noir tour cycle ends, what's next for you? Can you see yourself making another album, or are you going to go do something completely different?
Uh, I'd probably love to do something completely different, but I always find my way back to music. It's been such an important part of what I do, and then music has always been very personal. So I've always been very bad at, let's say, trying to write songs for other people because I always feel that you write songs for yourself because you try to process things in a melodious way that you can't process in any other way, and so in that sense, that's always been my thing, and I think that I will continue doing what I do, whether it be under the VV banner, whether it be musically something a bit different. I don't know, to be honest with you, and that's the cool thing. Once again, not to know. The thing is for me at this moment in time is to concentrate on the tour, the task at hand, as they say. And once the last gig is played, then all remains to be seen. It's the existential struggle that you're supposed to be going through each and every day. Is that whether you're worthy, or whether I'm worthy to carry the torch of Black Sabbath? That is the question. It's not to be or not to be. So that is my Shakespearean thing, which I ponder upon with holding the skull and my abode in Helsinki. So I'm sure I'll be doing some of that.
Mate, what are you most looking forward to about the Australia? Just lastly, what are you most looking forward to about this Australian tour?
Well, to be able to tour in Australia makes it a proper world tour. You know, you got to do that. I think it'll be the fourth or the fifth time I'm going to be around. We did Soundwave a few times with him, and it's always, and it's also lovely to be able to fly over to play Auckland. Only been there once, and it's such a, both Australia and New Zealand, they're so very exotic places for us Nordic people that are. I just have good memories. I'm not a very touristy person in a way that I would make like really tight schedules of what I got to see. It's more about just walking down the block, grabbing a cup of coffee, and sort of like smelling and listening and absorbing the vibe of a city or a country. And after having a long spell of just snow and -20, I think it'll be great to soak in the vitamin D for a wee bit and to be able to suffer again afterwards. So I'm just hoping that it'll be seeing some familiar faces in the audience and hopefully a few new ones as well. It's little baby steps towards small greatness.
Awesome, mate. Really, thank you very much for your time today, mate. I
Thank you
think
very
it
much.
was fantastic. It was lovely to meet.
Hopefully see you on tour.
No worries, mate.